emaciated figures standing on the quays of Dublin City have become enduring emblems of the Irish famine. Though they have become a part of the urban landscape, few of us might stop to consider how they came into being, or whose hand it was guiding their creation. They are the work of one man. Rowan Gillespie has been imagining, sculpting and casting his unique figures for over 30 years. Working with a combination of clay, wax, stone, metal and bronze, he brings his figures to life in his Dublin foundry entirely by himself. Gillespie's work can be found in towns and cities across Ireland and all around the world, from the Rocky Mountains in Colorado to the streets of Toronto to private collections all over Europe.
I remember Rome was hoping maybe to get a good review from some of the accepted art critics in this country, and it was very slow in coming. At the same time, Rome was establishing an international reputation which was second to none. It was very, very successful in Scandinavia, and indeed was selling all over Europe.
He has the facility to make things appear very easy. You know, what is the expression? 1 minute of inspiration and 99 minutes of perspiration. Rowan has worked extremely hard to get where he is today. It's not an overnight success.
There certainly is a Rowan Gillespie look, and I always think that that's a good sign when you can never confuse an artist with another artist's work, and they were identifiable right from the start.
It's a way of putting beauty into the world, and there isn't enough beauty in the world. So I think he does other things than sort of lecture or want to inform or want to educate even. You know, I think these are beautiful objects, and if you can take a dark subject, an ugly subject, and make it beautiful, you're doing what the artist does.
Because he is a fine sculptor, there's the pure quality of his work, there's the pure artistry of its craftsmanship, and there's the pure stop and look at me kind of evocation that it creates, because he is, at the end of the day, a superb artist.
He once told me if I have to stop pouring the sculptures myself, I have to stop sculpting. Because when he does this, he does it physically as well as mentally. With the design of the sculpture, he mentally puts himself inside, and he also physically puts himself inside. So in between the artist and the art, there is no distance.
Born into a Dublin Quaker family, Gillespie's first years were spent on the island of Cyprus, where his father, a psychiatrist, worked for the British colonial service, and the island was on the cusp of independence and ultimately civil war.
My family had lived in Cyprus for about 4 years before I was born, 4 or 5 years. I was actually born in Ireland by chance. And I think that the colonial Cyprus, from my memories, was like a sort of non-stop party of beach parties and people with hula hoops and yo-yos and sack dances and egg and spoon races, and extremely vibrant and probably very, very happy until things started to sort of implode in the country. The troubles came into Cyprus extremely fast. I don't think anybody really saw it happening, and suddenly the situation turned around to that you had to have armed guards to move around, and the beach parties ended, and barbed wire was put around the garden or the compound we were living in, and I wasn't allowed outside of that compound. And I had no children around to play with. I was just inside this compound. an isolated little boy who had to find things to occupy myself. I do remember being given this penknife by my father, and it was like a big deal that I was being given a penknife, because I'm a little boy and penknife, and I was being shown how to open and shut it safely and so on, and found the penknife was great for sort of scraping away on sandstone with. I think it just ruined the penknife in no time at all. But I did start to sort of carve little faces in stone. So I suppose they were the earliest little sculptures I made. I was once standing at the gates of the compound talking to two guards at the gate, and saw a man coming down the road on a bicycle. Now there was no busy traffic on those roads then. I mean, it was horses and carts and very, very empty, but a man came along on a bicycle. And I remember him sort of rummaging around in his pocket, and then he suddenly exploded. Literally, this man blew up in the street. And I understood that he was, I was told that he was trying to throw a grenade at the guards who I was standing right beside. I don't even know if he was actually throwing the grenade at the guards or at me, because people perceived to be colonial children were also being targeted at that stage. Within the first week at art school, I was in the sculpture department. And, well, it was back to the sandstone in Cyprus. I just, knew when I was touching clay and stone that it felt right. The teaching at York and at Kingston that I went on to was very much of the time. It would have been materials. It would have been the understanding of materials. Conceptual art hadn't really been thought of back then. And you would learn all of the things you need for your trade. You'd learn how to use the different materials. You'd learn how to understand all of them.
Certainly he had an interest in the whole technology and the practicality of actually taking or modeling a piece in clay or wax or whatever, and then bringing it through into metal, the whole process. Rowan, I think, had a great fascination for.
If they saw us looking at all smug and satisfied with what we did, they'd just tear us apart for it. I mean, getting precious about our work, that was completely out of line in those days. It was, you do the thing and then afterwards admit that you're not very good and get on and try to do better. I'd been planning on, as soon as I finished my degree, I was going to go over to Norway and live there with Hannah. But then, a little lump appeared in her stomach over in Norway, and I got a phone call on the Thursday to say, I think we've got a baby on the way. And so I literally just sort of hung up my tools in Kingston and put everything into the back of my Morris 1100 and drove to Norway and settled in with Hannah there. Norway in the winter is so different from the summer. You have those sort of long, dark days. And when people go into their studios and they work long hours in isolation, I was sort of back in Norway to what gave me so much comfort in Cyprus, that I could exist in this sort of isolated state doing my own thing.
What he got from Norway was angst. I mean, he instantly fell in love completely with the Norwegian expressionist painter Edvard Munch. And this started to seep into Rowan's work at this stage.
Working at the Munch Museum, taking a job on which was just really guided tours around and showing films and talking to people about Munch, that, well, Henry Moore had always said, or said visiting the college, he said, be yourself. That's all you need to know as an artist. You need to know your trade and then be yourself. The rest will happen. Edward Munch used to say, paint your life.